welcome to the Signature Leadership Show, where we help leaders uncover their authentic selves through their handwriting. And in the process, we uncover our own authentic selves. That's why I am thrilled today to have with us Angie Wisdom. Angie is a master certified coach with the ICF and has 25 years of business experience. She helps burned out business owners stop running in place and start elevating their companies by putting themselves first and carving out time to master their own leadership skills. As the professional coach behind the scenes for many of the most successful people you know, she is a mentor and confidant that navigates her clients from that place of searching for success to achieve more than they ever thought possible. Only 4% of coaches in the country have an MCC designation, and Angie is one of them. And she uses this distinction along with her experience and knowledge to guide her clients professionally and personally. And she's also the best-selling author of The Non-Negotiable You, Mindset Mastery for Daily Success, and Start With You, the Mindset Journal, or the Morning Mindset Journal. And that's where I'd love to start today. Welcome to the Signature Leadership Show, Angie.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm really excited to be here with you.
I am too. I'd love to jump right in. And one area of your expertise that fascinates me, where we have some common ground on, and I'd love to learn from you, is the morning journal, the mindset you need to start your day, and the mindset and the morning routine of successful people who you deal with. Can you talk a little bit about what this Start With You journal is all about, and why does it matter?
Yeah, absolutely. It has become the very most important piece of my life, of my day, and of all of my clients as well. It's a several prong approach actually to starting your day, but serves different purposes. One of the number one things I found out through my own journey and through working with clients is that we often try to succeed without ourselves. We put our relationship with ourselves on the back burner and we tend to everybody else. We give, give, give. We run ourselves into the ground. And it's almost like we don't even have this relationship with ourselves. And once we have it, we actually can create, an exponential amount of success. We increase our leadership because if you think about it, like we're the core of everything we do, every relationship we have, every job that we do, every word that we say, it only makes sense that we are performing at our highest abilities and having this relationship with ourselves. So that whole journal process is about really creating this relationship with yourself, but also getting in the driver's seat of your day. First thing in the morning going, I'm taking control of what I want in my life and my business by doing this, and also shifting your mindset to have your mind work for you instead of against you.
I love it. So when you say a relationship with yourself, is that about starting your day with a certain form or structure of self-awareness?
Absolutely. It's the first question in the journal actually says, how do you feel? And what are you going to do about it? Because self-awareness is key. We can't change anything if we can't see it and we don't know it. And so we have this ability, this superpower actually as humans to be self-aware and to see what we're thinking and what we're feeling. And if we do that, we create one of the best gifts and opportunities I think possible is opportunity to change. So that self-awareness is a big piece of it. But, the relationship with ourselves, if you think about it, think about your favorite relationship, whether it's a spouse, a kid, a friend, whatever. Like, think about those best relationships. You could probably name off, I'd ask you, what are the most important pieces of that relationship?
Trust,
Mm-hmm.
the ability to feel I can be myself, my authentic self with that person.
Yeah.
You started with talking about emotion. Emotionally, it just feels like with my wife and my two young kids, there's an ease, there's a flow, there is, my best self comes through.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like myself when I'm with my wife and my kids.
Right. So you've named all these wonderful components, right? The trust, the authenticity, the comfort, the likability. Also, like, what do you have a commitment to that relationship, right? You show up time and time again. You don't
Yes.
shortcut that. And if you think about it, if you look at the relationship you have with yourself, and probably not for you because of the leader that you are, but for most people, if you look at the relationship with yourself, those are absent. You don't trust yourself that much. You don't follow through with your commitments. You don't know who you authentically are. So, what I'm trying to get people to do is go, that relationship with yourself should be your number one relationship. It should be even stronger with yourself than it is with your spouse, because that relationship with your spouse comes from the relationship with you.
Mm, yeah, that makes sense. And one thing you said at the beginning of this conversation I'm interested in is you said you start with feeling. How do you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you start there when it comes to building this relationship with yourself or learning about yourself and building this self-awareness?
Well, it's like taking that inventory. One, shows that we care. We want to know how we feel. We want to know what's going on with us. And there's also this empowerment piece to it. If you know, then you have the ability to do something about it. And I always use this classic example of, you've probably heard someone say, like, oh, it was a horrible day. It started first thing in the morning. I woke up on the wrong side of the bed and it's been bad ever since. And that really embraces this victim mentality, feeling like, well, whatever I felt, I had to be. And if we don't know what we're feeling and can't separate it from ourselves, we actually become it. So if you're like, oh, I'm just really angry, and I'm angry today, or I'm sad today, then you actually become those feelings, and your mind is in control of you, and you lose that ability to create your day.
Along those lines, if you're writing down how you feel, is that part of self-talk?
The process of writing, to me, and you might even know better than I do about this, but there's so much power in writing things on paper. And so your mind can almost be deceiving in a sense, where it can think its own thoughts, and that's where you get that negative self-talk. But when you write something on paper, there is a different element to really embracing it. So it doesn't just become these thoughts that kind of toss and turn in your head, without any validity. When you write it down, it's like you're acknowledging it, and there's a commitment to do something about it.
Yeah, I was just listening to the Huberman Lab podcast,
Mm,
and he spoke about, and this was news to me. This is why I'm sharing it, because I
yeah.
was almost relieved to hear this. And if you haven't heard this, because he just came out last week, I found this really liberating to know this. There was 200 peer-reviewed studies on journaling. Even he didn't
Mm,
know about it, and he's a Stanford neuroscientist. Those 200 peer-reviewed studies were about journaling protocol, and they found that similar to what I believe, what I'm hearing from you is, when you write down your thoughts, when you write down your feelings, especially negative feelings, and there was a
mm-hmm,
series of specific points, writing about facts, like taking a difficult situation and talking about the facts about that situation, about how
mm,
you felt, about how you perceived what happened to you. There is a much higher chance that that will lower anxiety, reactive tendencies toward how you think about that in the future. And just
mm.
it's a powerful way, almost a form of, I be careful here the way I say this, but self-therapy
Yeah.
that also can connect, he said, well, with, if you're coached or you do have a therapist, by having doing just 4 times, writing down the most negative, your experience of your most negative situation.
That's amazing. I absolutely love him, and I haven't heard that episode yet. So now I'm super intrigued and have to go listen to it, because there's just so many benefits to journaling. And I think people underestimate the power of it as kind of like this woo woo thing. And, I'm not a journaler, but there's real science behind it. So I'm glad you shared that. But even what you're saying, this almost self therapy, and I know we, cautiously say that, but it's almost as if you're grabbing control of your thoughts when they're just up in your mind, going back to like your mind controlling you. it's like they're harnessing you and calling the shots, versus when you start writing them down, you're taking control of them. You're going, I see you, I'm putting you on paper, and I'm going to do something with you, whether it's let it go or whether it's take action on it. But they're no longer just going to kind of ruminate and take up space without a real purpose. And I think that's the big key to it.
Yeah, when I write things down, and we're going to move into your handwriting shortly, so it's a
Mm,
nice segue. When it's if it's not written down, it's not real. I think the Navy SEAL
yes.
said that, and I find that whether it's morning pages, Julia Cameron's technique, which is creative brainstorming, or maybe brainstorming is not the right word to use anymore, creative reflection. There's something extraordinarily practical, powerful, and inspiring about getting your pen on a piece of paper. And Huberman said, and I have to also give the other side, he said, you don't always have to write, you can actually type. I always prefer to write because I think there's something more
Mm.
human, and it's an expression of who you are when you write things down as opposed to typing, which we do most of the day anyways.
I really agree with you on that. I feel like our brains are trained for typing to make things perfect, to make things correct.
Yeah.
Versus when you write, it just kind of comes out, and you can scribble and you can cross it out and you can spell something wrong and you can write an incomplete sentence and it doesn't matter. But that's really hard to do typing. Our brains are like, okay, well, let me go back and capitalize that letter. Let me put a period here. Like, it's just a different process to me. So I'm a big fan of the writing as well.
Yes. And before we move on to our next part, I'd love to just ask you to go a little bit further, if you might, as to what are, let's say, three strategies, tools, or tips that, and it might even be you,
Yeah.
what you do, or what you might suggest to your clients. And obviously, that's contextual because different clients, different coaching clients have different needs when it comes to building this morning mindset routine that helps them get to the next level or become the best version of themselves.
I think the first thing is doing it, right? Taking action. And that's hard for people. Like, so many people say, well, I just forgot, or I lost track of time. So I'm a big believer in it being the very first thing that you do. It's also when our mind is most clear to tap into ourselves and we don't have the pollution of the text and the social and the email and the news and anything else. So, for example, I would stack it with whatever else I do first thing in the morning. So when I first got into this habit, I would literally put my journal right next to my coffee cup in the coffee machine. So it went hand in hand. If I got coffee, I got my journal. And they were just tied together. So that habit stacking is a really great way to start. The other piece is start small. My morning mindset journal is about 7 prompts on there, and it can really be done in about 10 minutes. But to some people, that still feels overwhelming. So literally just sitting down and taking one prompt, writing on a piece of paper, I feel, what do I want from this day? Start very small and simple and build it, because I know that over time, as you get some of that gratification, you'll want to expand your practice there. And then the last tip I would say is that journaling is not a performance or a perfect practice. So there should be zero judgment. We want that truth and that honesty to come out. Like you said, maybe even if you wrote something negative or you're being honest about something, that's okay. We're not judging, and this isn't anything anyone's going to read. We want to create that relationship with ourselves that says, I can say if I'm feeling really crappy this morning. I can say if, I don't feel like doing anything today. That's okay. We're opening up that relationship with ourselves.
That's so true. And on that point of opening up this relationship with
Yeah.
ourselves, what I'm doing, and this is real time, is I'm going to put your handwriting on the screen. Now, the reason that I'm doing that, for those who might see this for the first time, is I am a handwriting expert. I've done this for about 2.5 decades, where I can help people see what lies beneath the surface through their handwriting. And Angie has been kind enough to play along and provide her handwriting, which will come on the screen right about now if you see it. And I'm going to ask Angie a question, and then we're going to look at how the handwriting might provide some insights
Mm.
into our discussion. And it will all be over a short amount of time. So, are you ready, Angie?
I'm ready. This is so fun.
Okay, so what's a specific area? It could be a problem, a challenge, an opportunity that you want to improve.
I think right now the biggest challenge or area of improvement for me is I have a second book that I really want to put out, but I also have a really big live event I'm doing in March. So there's this conflict of divided resources and intention. I want both of them to be amazing. And so I'm kind of stuck in this place of like, do I just stick with one for right now and put one on the back burner? Or do I keep, forging forward with both, which is, sometimes my methodology, but I really, really want to be intentional and put 100% of what I have into them.
Okay, that's a wonderful place to start. Now, Angie and I just met, so this is the context. I am only going by the strokes on the page, and that is our framework is her handwriting. So if you look at the handwriting, now it's quite small. I have it in front of me too. So I'm going to point out certain letters that show this. Uh, the first thing I'm going to say, there's so many positive things. What I just heard from you is you have all these different projects happening. You want to finish a book, and yet there's something that might be holding you back from jumping right into one because of these. You're being pulled in different directions with these projects. Now, if you look at your T bar in the first line, it is to the left. So the small T, and it's on the
Mhm.
left side of that slide. And you do that more than once. So even though this is a small sample size of these funny sentences, I told you and your purple people eater friend, take that silly monkey and go back to the darn zoo. The strokes in those two sentences, Angie, can tell us something how we started this conversation about self
Mm.
reflection. And it's not judgment about ourselves. And that might show a little bit of procrastination because you like things done in a certain way. You're organized, you're disciplined, you're focused. That's the shape of the writing is very consistent. The stroke is consistent throughout. If I measured it, it's at this level. You're
Mhm.
very intentional about what you
Mm.
do. So
Mhm.
procrastination is not a negative trait. Procrastination is often a trait of creative people who want to make sure it's right before proceeding forward.
Mm.
How
Interesting.
does that sound right now with that? Is is that
Yeah,
accurate on some
no.
level?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking about a personality assessment, and it falls in line with that. I'm known to be a reformer, which is things being right. I want them done the right way. I believe if you're gonna do it, you do it right and you don't go halfway. So yeah, and the procrastination part, I don't think of it as a bad thing, but just as like there's always a reason why that's happening. It's not just for lack of wanting to do it, but yeah, I think that's really very accurate.
Yeah, and the studies are showing more and more that that word creative came to mind when I saw the bigger picture we'll talk about in a minute.
Mhm.
Procrastination is usually a trait of those who are really working toward a solution. They just don't feel they're ready yet. And
Mm.
I want to go into a little deeper about this book. So,
Yeah.
why does this book that is the project that it sounds like you really want to finish, let's say in the next year ahead or in the next, uh, sure, why is that? Why does that really matter to you to finish that book?
It was a powerful piece that I unlocked for myself this year, and so it feels very present. It really unlocked a lot of my potential, and something that I see in clients all the time. The basis of it is really redefining your past, and it holds so much power. My goal is to always create impact for people and to create clarity for them to create growth and change and really tap into their full potential. So as I went through this process and I started to unpack these pieces, it just wants to come out, and I'm like, this is something that I can give to people that is going to move the needle for them. And so you don't want to sit on it. You don't want to hold it back.
Okay. And on that note, as a coach, do you know what I see as one of your greatest strengths that you offer people? It's
What's that?
empathy. Empathy.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the stroke foundation, again, I've done this for a long time. It's very hard without, especially not in person, but that's not an excuse. The stroke formation I mentioned earlier, it looks like it's slightly to the right. It's not really far. It's not leaning way to the left or way to the right. It's slightly to the right, and that shows what we would call in handwriting a empathetic emotional responsiveness. So emotional
Mm,
responsiveness is how do you respond emotionally to other people? And some of the characteristics, the nuances of that are you do show affection, yet you don't get so wrapped up in other people's emotions that you can't make a logical decision or to help them by pulling back, but you do have this part of you that feels, that shows affection, that can understand people. You're expressive yet logical. You are subject to emotional appeal. So if someone comes to you and they're struggling or they need help, you really feel it in the heart, not just the head.
mhm,
You liked, okay, here now. This is also part of this characteristic. This what I would call CD on it. It's not like on an emotional spectrum in handwriting analysis. You like to be in control. You're organized, very intentional and deliberate, and you combine empathy, like we just mentioned, sensitivity, caring about how you come across to others, treating other people in the way you want to be treated. That is a subconscious ethos of how you see the world, and logic. So you have
mhm.
this ability to be affectionate, to show this responsive emotion. Yet I'm doing this deliberately. You're not all in, because that would lead to probably burnout as a coach, and it would be too much to handle in helping others. So it's you mentioned about impacting people, about wanting to help them, which is the word I heard, impact. Well, you're comfortable in providing this because you get inside who they are. And this is starts off just like with your journal, it starts off with how do you feel? You have the ability to feel what they feel and yet know when to step back to help them get to that point of
Mm.
whatever that point they need.
That is absolutely amazing that you pulled all of that out through there because it's 100% right. I'm over here going, how do you figure that out through there? I mean, empathy is literally my second strongest trait through the Strengths Finder. I mean, it is literally what guides me, the empathy part of it. And I'm laughing because I have clients that, and I've even said this before, that they say you listen like a mom and deliver like a dad, and it's just that, right? Like I have that empathy and I can hold that space, but i'm not I'm not going down with you, like I'm not going to get sucked into your feelings and not hold you accountable and tell you what you need to hear. I am very logical in that sense, so it's fascinating to me that you can extract all of that so spot on.
Now let's thank you. So let's go a bit deeper on that. You're
Yeah.
also very curious. So
Mm-hmm.
you have this ability, and this is actually in your signature. And again, I'm not even looking at you have certain strokes in your signature I can't even read, and it doesn't even matter. A- After the A-N-G, I think it's an I, there are these
Uh-huh.
two upward strokes like this.
Oh,
That
the
that
W.
stroke, again, just the patterns of what I've seen so many times, along with I need my glasses on this one, on the top line on your N is high. There's a high intelligence of curiosity there, analytical curiosity. It almost looks like a reverse V. So like
Mm.
an A with no line in it. That's high
Uh-huh.
intelligence curiosity. It's someone who
Mm.
is thinking 7 or 8 steps ahead of when a person says something, and has the ability to cut right to the core of what
Mm.
the key components are. It reminds me a little bit of my former boss at Saturday Night Live was Lorne Michaels, who's
Uh-huh.
this business visionary. And he had the ability, I think like you do, when someone would talk, we were almost intimidated, but in a like we were impressed in that kind of way, where you could say something and ramble on, and he could just go right to the core and say, "This is what you mean," like this, not explaining it to us in a way that was condescending. It was just like the curiosity of knowing the right question to ask at the right place at the right time. That's you.
Yeah. Wow. It's nice to hear that back. I mean, it's what I try to take pride in, and I'm known for the questions. That's who I am, and the curiosity, and I love that. That is just amazing that you find that through those letters. Spot on.
A few more things.
Yes. Oh my gosh, please.
You take pride in everything. So you have layers of your pride. So pride is the way, and I have this too. This is reaching for, I would think in your writing, a healthy form of acknowledgement, meaning you don't need it, but you want it. I think Wayne
Hmm.
Dyer said that. So there's not a need for approval. You like it though. You
Sure.
appreciate respect, and you give respect when you get it. I think that would be, if I would go so far to say, is a value of pride in what you do, pride in how you carry yourself, and that even goes toward your website, the book design, how you walk into a room as a speaker. You're thinking about, am I representing who I am inside to others externally, and taking great care and deliberation and sensitivity in how I present my appearance to the world.
Yeah, 100%. That's
And that
so
could even be,
important to me.
yeah, I would say so. And so I get that from the D shape. Again, I'm not even sure. I think it's a D in
Mhm.
the last word on your signature. Your signature
Yeah.
is what you want the world to see. That's your personal brand. So your signature is what you want the world to see. Your writing is who you truly are. And often they're aligned, and sometimes there's paradoxes because we are paradoxes. Not opposites, yet many different traits can exist within the same person. We're complex beings. So in that D shape on your signature, it shows pride. The D is
Mm.
about 2.5 times the size of your other writing. It's quite long. When I see long upward strokes like that with a little
Mhm.
bit of sensitivity, that's the loop. That shows me pride in how I
Mm.
just described it. Who you are, how you come across. It's important to you to show up at your best at all times.
100%. That is fascinating. Yes.
You're a really good conversationalist. I see that. And again, you could say, well, come on, you looked at her website. She's a coach. Well, okay, granted, that might be a fact, that is who you are. I can give you proof though. In the second line, there is a G. It says go back to. The GO looks like a figure eight, like we're in Canada. So
Yes.
you might not do it in California, but like the figure eight in skating, my daughter and I are going skating tonight, right? So that
Uh-huh.
figure eight, if it tends to be in the lower case, it tends to be, the writing is not big. It's actually mid size, almost not small. It's like kind of normal middle size, whatever that normal means, but that tends to be more writing in someone who's an effective writer
Mm.
when it's in the mid throat. So that's the ability to move from thought to thought in terms of writing. So once your mind goes, that's again the creativity where it's fluid, and it also shows
Mm.
up in the usually not always, but in your case because of the positioning of it in the actual writing, well, that's who you really are. So who you really are when no one's looking is, you're an effective writer, conversationalist when you want to be, although you don't need to be the center of attention. But when you are in that position, you are an effective conversationalist. I would also add that you are not a blabbermouth or gossip, in the sense that if someone shares something with you, they can be sure that you are going to understand what true
Mhm.
confidentiality means, and there's trust. And I bring that up because your O's are very clean. The circular middle shape,
Mm.
they're very circular. This is a
Yeah.
compliment. My mothers are like this, and my mother is loved and trusted by everyone she meets. And I'm not just saying that because she's my mom. And so that middle shape is, I can trust you because if you're my coach, I know what you're saying is authentic. And I know that if I share something that's sensitive or that is fragile, you'll be able to take it and know what to do with it. And it will stay between us.
That's amazing. I just want to take your whole description here, Jamie, and make it my new website advertisement. That is, but it's very, very true. I mean, that's something else I take a lot of pride in. And I hear from clients all the time that, I actually had two people come in my office, one right after the other day, and they had this big sigh. And I said, "What's that sigh for?" And they go, "I think it's just like I feel safe. I'm good now that I'm here." And that goes to that confidentiality piece.
Yeah, perfect. So, how are we for time?
I'm good. Yeah,
Okay,
I have no rush. I love this time with you, and it's fascinating to me everything that you can extract here.
wonderful.
I want to ask you, can I ask you a question about the handwriting though?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I notice like when I look at my handwriting, sometimes I almost like print. And then other times I've got this cursive that goes on and on. Is there anything behind that when at one you're writing a regular T, but then the cursive kind of picks up somewhere else?
Yeah, there might be a few factors. One is that's pretty normal in that today, especially because writing is not as prevalent as it used to be, it could
Mm,
just mean you're in a rush. It's efficiency. So the number one thing I
mm,
would say, it might just be efficiency. You're there, writing serves a purpose. It's not for show. It's just, I need to get this done. And that would be I'm looking at your writing now. The writing is, you might have done it like this because I asked you to do print or cursive, and your writing looks like it's more along the cursive, that you don't seem. It's interesting because your writing itself looks like it's calm, it's deliberate, you're not rushing. Your signature looks a little bit rushed. There's a little bit of
mm,
impatience there. And I think
mm.
that the combination of printing and writing might just be because it's more effective and efficient, and you have a destination and you want to get there. And I think that's all it might be.
That is very interesting because I actually feel that sometimes where it's like, this sounds so crazy, but you're like, what is that letter in cursive? Okay, no, it's just a regular. And you just kind of go with like whatever is, like you said, most efficient to get your message out there and write it down.
Yeah, it's a means to an end. And when I'm doing a journal every
Mm-hmm.
morning, my 5 minute journal to start, I sometimes can't read my own writing. And
Right.
yeah, and so like I might not even write every letter because it's just like, okay, I'm not writing a book right now. I am doing what we spoke
Hmm.
about earlier. I'm getting my thoughts. What are my goals? What am I grateful for? What do I want to achieve? Blah, blah, blah. And so for me, it's like, I want to do that before my kids wake up and help
Yeah.
my wife. But, I have all these other things to do. So my writing looks like that too, part writing, part printing.
That's so interesting. I
Yeah.
think that's going to be really interesting for people to hear because a lot of people ask me about their journal and how they write and while I'm trying to make it really look nice. And I think sometimes that can interrupt just that natural thought process of putting out what's in your mind.
Yeah. And there is this paradox in both. So again, I could talk all day about these aspects of handwriting, although we won't. To summarize it, if you are writing a book like you are, and say part of it is you're writing it by hand, or you're out and about and you're going to get a coffee and you're like, oh my, I got a great idea here. I need to jot it down. And if you're not jotting it on your phone, which I sometimes do when I get thoughts of, I also
Hmm.
will carry these. If you're writing it down, you'll notice that if you're trying to get it down, you are going to literally be, in your case, because you're so fluid as a thinker, connecting the dot, like literally connecting the strokes very quickly. So you
Hmm.
might err more on the side of connection because that's the fluid thinker that
Yeah.
figure eight. It's like you weave linguistic lassos. Your
Mm.
mind,
Oh, that's interesting.
your neurons are firing so quickly. So
Right.
what some researchers have said is that one of the benefits of writing is it's a zen. It's almost a form of mindfulness. It forces
Mm.
us to slow down.
Yeah.
There was a study at the University of Pennsylvania, and these two researchers found that when students watched TEDx talks and they were asked to take notes, when it came to abstract, esoteric, higher level thinking, when they were forced to write by hand and take notes, as opposed to type or literally sit back and just watch, their absorption rates went up by 30%.
Mm.
So, yeah, so when you're thinking fast, which you're a fast thinker once you get going, we tend
Yeah.
to write, which is better than not writing. Yet, if we can take our time and reflect, that's a form of mindfulness that will lead, based on the studies and based on, if you try it out, if you're watching this, I guarantee you will find something valuable from that. It helps you get calmer. It lowers anxiety and blood pressure, again, based on studies at the University of Calgary, when you give yourself the space and the gift of reflection without rushing, by writing things down.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in that. And I love when science can back it. Real
Yes.
facts.
Well, I needed
Hmm.
that because people said, well, handwriting, it's so
Right.
antiquated. what you're doing is a Cracker Jack box novelty. It's not real, it's pseudoscience. So I've always been on the lookout for things to back this
Uh-huh.
up because I know it works.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah, and for
Yeah.
anyone like you said, where you said, "Oh, well, you could say that because you look at our website." You can't possibly know just by looking at a website something about a person. No way. I mean, that's marketing. So,
Yes.
100% everything you're feeding me through my writing is spot on.
Thank you. So let's move forward with this
Yeah.
book with a few more questions before we
Okay.
get to our finale. So, Angie, you want to write this book. You might have been putting it off because the creative process, uh, you have multiple interests, you have multiple responsibilities. It's totally normal. Writing a book is a big deal. You've already written
Mhm.
books, so you know that. Um, if you had a magic wand, what would this look like if it all came to be the way that you imagine it, you want it to be?
What, in putting both of those together, do you mean if I could have it all?
Yeah, let me reframe that question. It
Yeah.
wasn't a great question. If everything you ever imagined came true when it came to making this book a reality, let's say in
Mm.
2024, what would you see, hear, and feel?
I would just see so much thoughtfulness in what I write and so much content, patience through the process, being able to really look back and go, wow, I really had dedicated time to put a 100% of my heart and soul and my mind and research into this book, that I didn't show up with only 80% for it, that it was over 100%. And this book is now in people's hands and they are now viewing their past in a different light and it's making a huge impact for their future.
Mm. Okay, in order for that to happen,
Hmm.
what's one thing right now you can do that would be a game changer in that direction of completing that book?
You'll laugh when I say this. I'm an early riser already. I get up at 4:30 in the morning, and writing in the morning is my favorite time. The first thing that popped in my mind was if I got up at 2:30, I'd have 2 hours to write before I really started my day. And that's literally what comes to mind for me, is that I have to be able to carve out that early morning time for me to do that writing. That's when I write best. The dilemma is just that, yeah, my 4:30 starts my morning mindset and then starts my workout and this regular routine. So it's about finding how I can expand that routine and make some changes, but still keep intact all the things that are important to me.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought that up, even with waking up in the morning, because I've tried that too. I was doing a series of talks in another part of Canada with the time change, and I ended up
Hmm.
starting coming back home. I'm in Toronto now, getting up at 3:30 when usually I would
Yeah.
wake up at 5. And I was so proud of myself because I thought, wow, I'm getting more done by 10 a.m. than I even have previously. But I started walking around almost in a fog. Like I was like the
Mm.
whole day I felt like I'm about 70% there and I need to take
Oh,
like at
wow.
least one big so I thought, how do you wake up early? This is rhetorical. I don't even know if you have a response to this.
Yeah.
How do you wake up earlier when you know you need a certain amount of sleep and not feel like crap or feel like you're not at your best after that initial window where you do get up early and you feel good about accomplishing or taking one step closer toward your goals?
I mean, it's a time scale, right?
Yeah,
And it really does, you have to shift your evening. You can't just take time out of your sleep. I'm a believer in that because one of the most important things to me is to show up at your highest self. So
yeah,
if all of a sudden now we're energy depleted, that's not a possibility or an okay scenario for me. But I literally, you start going to bed earlier and earlier. And somebody texted me the other night at 8:15 and I didn't answer them. And they were like, "What do you mean you were sleeping? You were sleeping at 8:15?" Like who goes to bed at 8:15? But it's about, weighing that, like what's most important to you. I didn't have anything else important after 8 o'clock at night. So that's what I have to look at, is really how early am I willing to go to bed to have that morning time, or what can I shift in the middle of my day if I
yeah.
start that morning routine a little bit later. But it's great awareness on your part. What did you end up doing?
Well, I shifted back to waking up at between 5 and 6, and
Mhm.
it's such a simple thing, but I said, don't be so hard on yourself. Like,
Mm.
I remember seeing Mark Wahlberg. I don't even know if it's true. I think it is true, where he would wake up at some crazy hour, 2 in the morning, 2:30, and I said, well, if with his level of success, which is a anomaly, not everybody is as
Mhm.
successful as Mark Wahlberg for a number of reasons. So it's good for him, and don't compare. Comparison is the thief of joy, which I believe on a
Yes.
certain level. Yet I thought, what if I brought more of, I like to model successful people habits and take here and there, because I think sometimes you learn about your authentic self by comparison, even though I just said don't do that,
Mhm.
without attaching too much to my identity if I don't get there. And I thought, well, that's good for him. Yet he probably has 12 assistants and he has multiple people helping him at every part of the day. And I'm a solopreneur. And I'm a
Yeah.
dad, and I want to be, the best father I can be and the best husband. And so give myself a break. It's okay to wake up at 5. I'm still pretty productive most of the time, and just, carry on and make little tweaks to the habits. Like you said, stack other little habits to get to the direction I want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so true, that comparison, it's like it's not always apples to apples, right? Like you said, he's got all these assistants or all this help or his day may look differently. So, we can't just compare one thing when nothing else lines up in that comparison.
Yeah, it's true. I'd love to just do a speed round now before we end,
Okay.
because I think as for you're a master coach. Uh, I help people, like you've seen, through handwriting and through the leadership circle profile. I would love to hear us both do this. I'm going to focus more on you, but
Yes.
feel free to put it back on me. The 4L retrospective, which I heard from another leading coach who
Mm.
I follow on LinkedIn, and Paul Bryn, and he talked about the 4L process. And I thought, well, for today's podcast, which will be released next week, which is December 2023,
Mhm.
we're often reflecting back on the year, or I know people like you and I like to reflect and to help others
Yeah.
reflect. I thought this might be a good speed round, which we haven't rehearsed either, as to the 4Ls: like, learn, lack, and long for, while we wrap this up.
I love it. Okay. Like,
Perfect.
learn.
Lack, like, learn, lack, long for.
Okay.
So
I'm
I'm
making
going to throw out a
myself a note.
question, and
Okay.
you can pull it back on me, or we keep going, and we
Yeah.
could just do it really quick. Okay,
Sure.
so like is celebrating wins, Angie. So what specific projects, activities, or people brought out your best in this past year?
June of this year, I released my first book, The Non-Negotiable You, and so that was a huge win. I had a phenomenal book coach. I was surrounded by all of my clients and had so much gratitude and appreciation from them for that through the book release party. So that was really awesome.
Amazing.
What about
Thanks for
what
sharing.
about for you?
I might say that two podcasts. So this
Oh
podcast,
yeah.
Signature Leadership, and
Mm-hmm.
another podcast which I was asked to do for a Canada's leading CEO advisory board group and mastermind group, Tech Canada. I do interviews for them once a month, and
Oh,
so
amazing.
yeah, so I'm not gonna. So that's what I like. There's a lot I learned too, but like that to me was, I had no platform in this world, and now I have two platforms. It's a lot of work, yet I've learned so much, and that goes to our second
Mm.
question: learned. What specific ways did you learn in the past year, or what did you learn about yourself in 2023?
Yeah, I learned that I even every year it seems like this, where myself, and I think other people can relate to this, we have so much more in us and we can really follow through and create greatness if we get to that level of commitment that we can hold, steady with. And it sounds silly, but I did 75 hard this year and it was just so eye-opening. The littlest things that if you're in a challenge, if you really commit to it and say you're going to do something, it's shocking how much ability you have to actually do it. But yet we don't really perform at that caliber on a daily basis unless we're being held to the fire or being challenged. So that was fascinating to me. And then being able to incorporate in that everyday life, not just when you're challenged, has been a game changer for me.
Love it. Okay.
Yeah. What was your biggest learning moment for this year?
I think it was reinforcing, even at this stage in my life, my resilience. So
Mm.
is giving myself a little credit for what I've overcome, because this year
Mm-hmm.
there was challenges this year, and my wife reminds me, she says, you don't give yourself enough credit
Mm.
for how you show up with such consistency and constantly bounce back and fall upward.
Yeah.
And I learned it's not something that was new. It just was sometimes when it's easy to see it in others, sometimes to flash the light on ourselves and say, okay, it's not bragging to just say this is something that I just took for granted in myself that is clearly a strength, is my ability to bounce
Mm-hmm.
back. Hmm.
Yeah, that I mean, if I could throw something in there real quick, I think it's especially in both of our roles, we're so used to seeing things in other people that
Yeah,
sometimes we can't see things in ourselves and we can celebrate our wins. But I had a client say to me the other day, she's like, "Do you actually see yourself the way clients see you?" And
yeah,
we don't always have that ability. So for your wife to point that out, I think
yeah,
it's so important that people in our role have other people that can reflect that and see that and open our eyes to that. So glad she did
yeah.
that for you.
Well, thanks for
Yeah.
reinforcing that. Okay, two more. So lack, in what areas, missed opportunities, or areas you want to do better in the year ahead?
Mm, that's a tough one. Gosh. It,
We can
and
skip
I'm
it
going to
too.
be, well, I'm going to be really vulnerable actually, because I think I said it's tough because, you don't always want to give that answer that is there.
Yeah.
But to be completely honest, I lacked in external, like, and I know this sounds weird, but materialistic thoughtfulness. I have always been this really thoughtful person who it's like, oh, well, I'm going to bake brownies and bring them to this person. Oh, I saw this and I thought of you. And as life and business gets fuller, sometimes I don't carve out that time to do that extra thoughtfulness. I'm thoughtful with my words and I show up for people, but I miss that kind of gift giving. And whether it's a note, whether it's food or anything like that's really lacked for me.
Well, that's amazing self-awareness.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
bringing
sharing
it
that.
out.
My pleasure. For me, I would say an area I want to be better is I want to outwardly, and it's also inwardly, obviously, because what is out is reflected of what's in,
Mm-hmm.
is I want to do a better job of enjoying the journey a little more in my
Mm.
professional growth. And I want it for myself, number one. I also want it for my kids to model uh, enjoying the journey, not just the destination, as the cliche goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel that I don't always enjoy the journey. I feel that I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and I'm so driven that sometimes I get there and I make excuses to myself that, well, I need this level of intensity and energy to get there, to grow, to start from scratch 5 years ago and to get where I am, which I still want to improve. I need this level of focus. And sometimes that
Mm.
comes across as uh, unsmiling sometimes and not as light, a little bit heavy in my energy.
Yeah.
And I need to work on that. And so I'm making a commitment, and I don't even know all the answers how, other than doing yoga and meditating and journaling. These things help. Is to make the time every day as much as possible, and to keep my kids in the foreground, to say they're still young enough that they are interpreting, they are absorbing, they are seeing for themselves how their dad deals with his own growth in his journey.
Mm.
Hmm.
That's amazing. I love that. That really resonates a lot. That determination, I can hear that determination in your voice, and looking at what your possibility and what you can do. I mean, if you feel like answering a question, I can't help it because I'm a coach, but I'm just curious, like, what would that day look like if not only the bookends of your yoga, this and that, but like in the middle of your day and your work, you were really present and enjoying that journey.
Yeah, I think I am. Well, I would. I guess you'd have to ask my wife, but I think I am pretty present when I'm present. Uh,
Yeah.
it's more about within that presence, the ease, the groundedness
Mm-hmm.
that isn't just there when I'm doing those activities, when I'm going for a walk in nature, even though it's quite cold now here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when I am doing yoga, I feel I am grounded in those moments. I think what it would look like is bringing more responsive and less reactive energy with little things, getting a little bit
Mm,
irritated about, getting a little bit impatient throughout the day. It would be the reverse of that, the opposite of that. So it would be when something happens that is not quite is different from my expectation in reality, instead of getting annoyed or the that
yeah.
breath, or I don't raise my voice much, but sometimes I get like is that becomes more like it's okay. We're
Mhm.
good. That certain calmness that I am when I'm giving workshops, when I am
Yeah,
with people, I'm very much zen or more calm. And then sometimes at home, which I think is when your best energy should be, I feel like I am a little bit on edge. And so
yeah,
it would be bringing that calmness, that groundedness. That's how it would look. That's how it would feel. That's if I created a positive visualization. No one's perfect, but it would be more of that more of the time. And when I do go off the rails a little bit, it's not to also be so hard on myself and say, look, I took 7 steps backward. No. Pema Chodron, the Buddhist nun, said this was like, supposed to be an enlightened Buddhist nun who's written several books on these types of topics. She said years ago that she got really upset with herself because another nun said, hated her. And she got so wrapped up in her head and she thought, why does she hate me? And was so self-conscious, and it totally destroyed her week. And she thought, how
mm,
dare she? And she thought to herself, even worse, I'm supposed to be this example of
yeah,
Granite. Did I just go 8 months backward? Did I just completely fall off the cliff of my state of mind? And she said to herself afterward, and upon reflection, no, you had a moment. Everybody has
yeah.
moments. It's so to
Love
give,
that.
give myself those moments.
Yes, grace.
Grace.
Mhm.
Yeah, and thanks for how you just held that space. I could feel that across the screen.
Oh.
You how you non-judgmentally, even though I'm not even looking at you, you're over here. I'm looking right into the camera like we're supposed to. I can feel it. I can feel the smile. And
Oh, I'm
last,
glad you
Angie,
can.
is
Yeah.
what is next for you moving
Yeah,
forward?
next for me, I think, I foreshadowed a little bit about the book, but I am hosting an event this year, a Get Intentional event on March 9th, and so excited about it. I'm bringing in some performance coaches and speakers. So it'll be the first event I've hosted with outside speakers and coaches.
Yeah,
I'm super excited about it to make a major, major impact on a lot of people. So that is definitely front and center for me. And I'm committed to making it an amazing event.
excellent. Well, I look forward to reading or seeing that
Yes,
through your
yes.
social
And for
media.
you,
Yeah.
Jamie, what's next? Tell me.
What's next is on to take your lead from a professional project standpoint
Yes.
is I just signed with a US speaking manager. I have several, I work with your agents.
Uh
So
huh.
it's really to do more work in the US. And that to me
Mm,
is exciting because I've started to over the past few years. Next year, I have many more things on the agenda. And so
mm.
it's not overly interesting to talk about, but it's building the foundation that will allow me to grow, not just in Canada, but also in North America.
I love it. So maybe we'll be seeing you over here then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic.
So, Angie, I want to thank you so much for your openness, your willing to share your wisdom, literally wisdom, and for engaging in, I've done many of these, a real back and forth interactive conversation, which is a testament to your ability as a coach, as a speaker, and the ability to make me, the host, feel comfortable on my own show. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. It was an excellent conversation. I really am. Thinking so much about everything you've shared. It's just fascinating. And I can't wait to share this episode with my audience and have them learn more. They're all going to be going, can I get my signature analyzed?
And we end on this one point, which I like to end on,
Yeah.
is what you said. What was most useful or what was most inspiring to you about our conversation?
Almost what we talked about us not being able to see ourselves the way our clients see ourselves and or see us, and the way you reflected what you saw on my handwriting was just such a special affirmation. It's sometimes the things that you want to believe that you are, and you hope that you're portraying these things, but to have somebody be able to analyze it from a different perspective and hear that given back, you just gave me kind of like a renewed burst of like energy and inspiration to go, yes, yeah, this is it. And it's inspiring to hear that and be able to take that through to my clients too.
Wow, thank you. That means a
Yeah.
lot. And that is the Signature Leadership Show, where we help world class leaders uncover their authentic selves. And as you saw, they help us, or they help me. Angie helped me uncover mine. Please subscribe if you haven't. Check out the show so that you can be the first to see Angie live on the Signature Leadership Show coming up. Thank you.